Alright, so a Polygon review dropped for Sonic Forces a few hours ago. So let's read the summary. I actually read this review ahead of time, so I'll just explain my thoughts on what I think about it. But I'll read the summary for you here real quick. Sonic Forces creators' good intentions and interesting ideas don't amount to much in a game so clumsy and limited in design. It certainly doesn't help that Forces follows right on the heels of Sonic Mania, a game that not only demonstrated a more focused design sensibility, but also did a far better job at realizing its creators' ambitions. Forces may have had a larger budget than Mania, but it certainly feels like the poor creation all around, unless your dearest dream has always been to play a Sonic game as your own original fan character. Sonic Forces doesn't have much to offer, and they gave it a 5 out of 10. Now, what is the main focus of this review? I'm going to be honest here and say that most of the review was pretty vague. They didn't really go into specifics of why they didn't like a certain thing. They were just mentioning a certain thing that they deemed unenjoyable or wasn't correct or wasn't good, and they would just leave it at that. In fact, they were complaining about a timer in a Sonic game, like as in the regular timer, which counts from 0 all the way up to whenever time you finish the level, which I found really strange. If anyone's played any Sonic game forever, except Lost World, everyone knows that the timer will count up. And you know, you finish the game, you finish the level, and then you're graded based on how quick you finish the level. Except for in classic Sonic games where your time still accounted toward your score, but you weren't graded on it, which is something different. So the main meat of this review is mainly criticizing the level design for being too simplistic. They go on in this review to describe the 2D sections as quite literally pressing right and jumping, and the 3D sections holding up and jumping. Based on what I've seen in leaks, I can agree that the level design is really lacking in comparison to other Boost games like Sonic Generations and even Unleashed. And in this review, they also go to explain that yes, the classic games could be compared in the same way, but you can go out of your way to find alternate paths, and you can have a new take on the level. This is something I also agree with. The classic games did have that, and I like them for that. You know, the multiple paths thing is always something that I can appreciate in a Sonic game, and that's how I feel a Sonic game should be. It shouldn't just be, you know, going on one linear pathway. Some people like linear paths in Sonic games. I don't. A lot of the fan base doesn't. But I do believe that having more open level design is a much bigger benefit than limiting the game to only having linear level design. That's something I'm pretty sure that most of us can agree with. The reviewer also continues on to say that most of the challenge in the game comes from poorly placed obstacles, and that with the combination of the high speed nature of the game. Yep, that pretty much sums up the Boost gameplay. And in Unleashed and Generations, if you continually just decided to go fast, you would get wrecked, you'd get bodied. So you'd actually have to know where... Well, it wasn't necessarily based on memorization. The speed sections allowed you to go fast, but you could also see what was coming ahead unless you were just holding Boost like a madman, which you shouldn't be. Because any sane person that knows how to play a Sonic game will know that you can't go fast all the time. It is also a platformer. There is speed, and then there's platforming. Both of them can be merged together, like how Sonic Mania did it, how Generations did it, how the Adventure series did it. Like, they're not... Both of them aren't separate, but you also always have to be cautious when you're going through a level, because there might be an obstacle you simply can't see, especially in the Boost games while going so fast, because when you're boosting, there's a screen filter, obviously. And I'm saying this because Polygon, man, they were complaining about how Crash was the next Dark Souls of platformers. But yeah, that's my thought on level design, and that's mainly where the challenge comes from in modern Sonic games, and it doesn't sound like they like it. because, quote, S ranking a stage ultimately boils down to route memorization, not skill or reflex. Based on my experience on the boost gameplay, there was some reflex involved, but I don't really think that Sonic stages should be based around reflex, because at the current speeds you're going, it's really hard to react to things, especially with the camera angles, man. That shit fucks you up. Like, honestly, in Rooftop Run and Sonic Unleashed, if it wasn't for those button cues, it can be tricky to determine when you should quickstep, because you're just going so fast, and then you have that blur screen filter, which can get annoying, especially in that game. With Generations, they toned it down a bit, and it's much easier to determine when you should quickstep, or when you should jump, or when you should do a certain action. But it locked the camera, so it was even harder to, you know, get a good view on where you were at the current moment. But regardless of that fact, this review sounds very... It sounds like it's coming from someone who hasn't really played a modern Sonic game, or a Sonic game in general, for a long time. Like, this sounds like from a person who casually played a classic Sonic game, maybe Mania. I don't know if it's the same reviewer as the guy who did Mania, but whatever. The reviewer also goes on to say that if Forces does anything well, it's to add to the sense of spectacle, to the mundane act of running in a straight line, to quote them. They also go in the review, from what it sounds like, they don't really like the avatar. They don't like the idea behind him. Neither do they like the dark tone of the story. They feel like there are lots of things wrong with it. In a nutshell, in this review, they do not like the custom character, and they don't like the level design and the automation in most of the levels. They feel like it just makes it feel really lackluster, from what I'm getting at this review. And they think Mania is the better game, and I can understand that. Mania is really good. It's awesome. I love it. I was having hopes for Forces, but based on what I've been seeing, that kind of died down real quick. I'm still gonna play the game, still gonna try it out. I hope that it's better than what I'm reading here, but I'm gonna take this review with a grain of salt, because Polygon isn't really the most reliable place for reviews, in my opinion, for platformers. But you guys should check it out and see for yourselves. Give it a read and let me know your thoughts.